it going, YouTube? Anime Bar Lounge here. Today we're talking about One Piece. So for those that don't know, One Piece is my favorite series of all time. And to be quite frank, we don't talk about it on this channel a lot, other than the few cocktails I have made for the series so far. And the reason for that is because it's my favorite series, I often have a hard time articulating why I love it so much. And so I've put off talking about it for a long time. Well, today we're going to change that. And because One Piece is going to be on hiatus soon, for those that don't know, after the next chapter, chapter 1054 releases, the series is going to be going on a month-long hiatus. And so for the rest of this month in June and all of July, I'm going to declare One Piece month and a half on the channel. So, going forward, I'm going to focus a lot on One Piece content for the channel, and we're going to start with this video talking about why I love One Piece so much. So, to start off, I'm just going to talk about the world building. One Piece has phenomenal world building. A lot of the arcs go through I'd call it repetitive, but it doesn't get boring, or I don't get bored of it, basically. The structure of the story, I know a lot of people say the series is long, it's over 1,000 chapters. I hear that complaint a lot, mostly by people that haven't seen it yet. But the reason the series, I think, works so well compared to other series that are compared to this length is that you can either binge the whole series if you're that determined, or you can go through it in chunks, because we tend to go from location to location. And the way the story works is that when the crew lands on a new island or location, you quickly go through this world building aspect where you learn about the inhabitants of the island, you learn about its architecture, you learn about what food is there. So you get this real culture dump where you find yourself starting to get really invested in pockets of this world. So it influences both the bigger world, but also this small little pocket, almost like a reflection of real life. Like, obviously, what happens in a country in the real world can impact the rest of the world, but also you can get very pinpoint focus on, like, Italy and what their food is like, what's their structure, what's their history, etc. And so when you do that in a fictional setting, it can be really interesting because it's just really cool to learn about a small thing and then watch it sort of gush out. So another thing that's really cool in One Piece is how something can get recontextualized and impact something and make it so that a character that you might not have cared about at first is super fucking cool. So an example of this, because I don't want any spoilers in this video, by the way. So for this is a spoiler-free video. I'm going to have a video where I talk more in depth and have spoilers, but this is the spoiler-free version of why I love One Piece. So let's say early on in the stories, you're introduced to this character, and this character's story is that he's waiting for a certain person, and he's been waiting for a long time. Let's say 50 years. He's been waiting in this one spot, and basically he's exhausted, and he's still holding out hope, even though it's been 50 years. But he can't break himself out of this area, and so he's hurting himself trying to get out of this area, and the crew stumbles upon him and go, yo man, you got to stop doing this to yourself. You need to find a different reason to live, because they know chances are 50 years this guy's probably dead, and even if he's alive 50 years he's not coming back. But then in a much later arc, you bump into this character who's been stranded on effectively the Bermuda Triangle, and at first you're like, oh, this dude's pretty cool, and then when the arc comes to a close and it's in its falling action, and he's like, the crew's like, oh, so what's your story? What are you all about? And he's like, well, I'm trying to find a friend. I haven't seen him in years. And then you pinpoint these things together. It's been hundreds of chapters or episodes, depending on if you're reading or watching the anime, And suddenly, your brain pieces them together and it's really cool. And I know other series do this, but it's hard to describe why One Piece does it so well for me. I just lose my mind because I've turned the coin Time Bomb feels, because the author will sprinkle in something and at first you're like, oh, cool, that's kind of neat. And then you don't realize why it's so cool until much later. It's sort of like, as an analogy, if your parent gave you like a really cool coin and you liked that really cool coin just because you thought it looked cool, but then you got a coin, you decided to borrow like a coin book from a library to look it up, and then you realize there's history to it, there's money involved, like it was cool to you at first just for one reason, but then you get a bunch of reasons to like it. And so it becomes more than just this cool coin I got from my parents and yo, there's history here and it's worth a lot of money. So now there's a lot of reasons to like this coin. And so that's sort of what One Piece does. It gives you one reason to like something at first, and then later in the series, without retconning too much or making it feel like it was just for plot convenience, it gives you a lot of reasons to like something. Another reason I like One Piece is for the characters. I think it goes without saying, but to have a really good series, you need good characters. And One Piece has great characters. There's characters that I really like because they're cool, and there's characters that I enjoy, but I fucking despise. And so you have examples of characters like the Straw Hats, Luffy, Sanji, Nami, Zoro, etc. And they're cool because they're well-rounded characters, their backstories give them more reason to like them, and although gradual, you get upticks where they find ways to overcome their flaws, whether it's physical flaws like they can't fight someone, or maybe literal flaws like, Luffy's stubbornness, but he needs to grow in that aspect, or Sanji can't fight women, so he needs to find a way to overcome that flaw. And sometimes the way to overcome that flaw is in a direct example where it's them relinquishing that flaw, whether temporary or permanently, so that they can start overcoming that obstacles, or doubling down and holding on to that flaw and finding ways to live with it, but also still overcoming it despite having it, which I think is a very realistic way of doing it and something that you can sort of take as a good message, where if you have a flaw, you really have two options to go about your life. You can either overcome it or you need to find alternatives for it. Other characters that I really like in the stories are villains. There are very good villains, and there's two types of villains, generally speaking, in One Piece. You have villains that are super cool and have great backstories where you're able to almost see where they're coming from and almost want to root for them as villains because they have good reasons for what they're doing. Or you have villains that you want to fucking die and you really hate, but you don't hate them from a writing perspective. You hate them because you want to see them taken down, and they drive a really compelling narrative. Next, I want to talk about the comedy in One Piece, because it's something that at first I didn't really care for, but over time, there's a lot of gags in this series, whether they're ones that get repeated ad nauseum or ones that exist usually within an arc or two, and they're just so funny. I don't want to say I don't really want to give too many examples, but I'm going to be vague with these. But like, there might be characters that are powered by like a certain type of fuel, and then a different type of fuel is used to power them, and so you get to see these gags on how that works. Or you might get characters making fun of other characters, sort of like in real life where you'd make fun of your friends for how they act, and so you have characters doing impersonations of other characters. It's really funny, but I can't explain it both because of spoiler reasons and because explaining a joke usually doesn't work too well. So if you haven't seen One Piece, just take my word for it, or go watch it yourself, because I guarantee some of these jokes and gags are hilarious. And then lastly, I want to bring up that I love both the anime and the manga, despite the fact that there are a lot of advantages and disadvantages to both. So I just want to talk about what I love about both and what they bring to the table that the other one can't. So for the manga, I really love the paneling. There's a lot of good paneling in this series. There's moments where you flip the page and you're immediately, boom! There's something cool happening, or there's a big reveal, or a character's taking up an entire panel, or there's like all the characters lined up, ready to go, ready to fight. Or on this page, all hope is lost. It's the end. We're fucked. And then you flip the page and it's like, what's that on the distance? Oh my gosh, the cavalry is here. We're saved. And then in the anime, what I think the anime has as an advantage is the soundtrack. The soundtrack is phenomenal, and it can really enhance a lot of scenes. A lot of the times, like if it's a sad scene or a really heroic scene, there's a lot of music I have, and I've saved a lot of it in a playlist. Sanji's themes, which are usually very jazzy, and then they kind of, if it's a fight scene, it's a different theme, but it's like kind of more like intense and got that finger snapping going. Katakuri's theme's really cool. Zoro's theme's really cool. Like, you get to attach themes to characters, and that's obviously not present in the manga unless you're like listening to it on the side, but it started in the anime. And so while a lot of people will argue anime versus manga, I personally feel they are both important, and for me, combining them is what makes my favorite series. If I had to choose just one, I would obviously choose the manga, because the manga's further ahead and it gets the best point that the author wants to tell across. You know, the anime does tend to change things even if they're small, and when you see a scene in the manga, it doesn't always translate perfectly into the anime, but there are times that the anime can take a scene and make it better. And so I just want to highlight that whether you're manga only, anime only, or like me and like to watch both, there are reasons to check out both. They're both phenomenal. And some of the more common things I've heard on top of the length is the character designs. The character designs, don't get me wrong, are super goofy. I actually agree with this, because originally I didn't want to watch One Piece because these designs are really goofy. They're really weird looking. If you give it a chance though, these designs can really do a lot for the storytelling. And some designs are so out there that you'll look at a character like this or this and be like, not for me. But sometimes it's intentional. The author wants you to look at characters and be like, that's a weirdo, I'm not interested. And then you get their backstory, or they start doing things for the story, and you're like, okay, I misjudged them. They're cool as shit, and I'm also sad now. Anyway, that was just me talking about One Piece, my favorite series of all time. I'm excited to make more One Piece content for the rest of the month. So I hope you enjoyed me just quickly shooting out me basically just gushing about the series. This is a completely unscripted video, just because I really wanted to get my voice out there, and I didn't want to waste time coming up with a script, and I just wanted to talk about One Piece. So that's what we did today. We just talked about One Piece, and we're going to be doing that for the rest of the month. Some videos are going to be more scripted. There's going to be more cocktail videos. There's going to be probably hours worth of discussion on this channel. So if you like One Piece, it's a good time to be on this channel. So please like and subscribe for more One Piece content, because there's going to be a lot of it. So thanks for watching. This has been Anime Bar Lounge. Take it easy, YouTube.